Hello there everybody and welcome to today's video where we are going to be taking a look at Axia before Axia. So here we're going to be looking at a 1980 Fuji SR Type 4 metal and a 1982 Fuji ER Type 1 ferric. But before we get into those cassettes, let's take a deep dive into the history of Fuji in Japan. So, Fuji started making cassettes in the late 70s. From what I know, their first cassette was actually not really from the late 70s, from the early 70s, I mean, because they made their first cassette in 1971. Yes. And then they continued to make cassettes as Fuji, but at the time they were calling themselves Fuji Film because of course Fuji Film was a film company which made, photography stuff. That's why they called themselves Fuji Film. But in, I believe, 1977, they turned themselves into the Fuji that we know now. But then in Japan, in 1984, Fuji turned into Axia. And Axia made their first ever cassette in 1985. So, these are Japanese cassettes. I bought these from Japan. And these are Fuji, they're not Axia. So, now let's take a look at the two cassettes. Of course, in order of age, I suppose. So let's look at this one. First, the Type 4. The Fuji SR. This was their top of the range model in 1980. And of course, it's a metal cassette. If we take off that shell there, you can see that it has a nice little engraving on it that says Fuji Cassette. And it says Fuji Cassette SR Type 4 metal position 80 minutes. Yeah, it's an odd, quite an odd tape length. The actual right protect notch on here was actually removed, but I put some tape on it. And it's the same thing on side B, except there's an engraving there that says side B. Now, if we look at this J card, I'm lucky to have the original stickers. So you can put there, your label, noise reduction on or off. And then, I don't know what these shapes are supposed to be, but they are shapes. They are definitely shapes. And at the back, it talks about, cassettes and, the right protect notches and winding them with a pencil and whatnot. Now, on here, on the J card, you can see on the inside there's writing on it because the original owner of this recorded the King Crimson album Beat on side A. And side B was left blank, so we'll be using side B for the recording test. Here it says Fuji SR80 with the Fuji logo. And at the back, it's quite plain. Type 4 metal position, bias, EQ, metal 70 microseconds, date, time, source, ceremonial, noise reduction on or off, deck, count, because there were still only analog tape counters, so that's exclusive to your deck, whatever that may be. And here, if you flip it over like this, that looks pretty nice, honestly. Yeah, Fuji 80 SR80. I don't know what this 9 means, but then you can write something on there. So, okay, yeah, that's about it for the Fuji SR from 1980. So let me just put all of this back together. Okay, and then now we are going to take a look at the Fuji ER90 from 1982. Now, what's recorded on here, I don't know what it is. It's just a bunch of Japanese people talking. I believe it is some kind of corporate meeting, either that or like a school thing maybe, but it's just like a bunch of adults talking, you know. So I don't really know what they're talking about because I don't speak that much Japanese. Anyway, let's take a look at the cassette itself once again. Yeah, here, nice engraving there, A, and I believe this is Braille. I believe this says A. Yeah, Fuji ER Type 1 normal position 90. Arrow to the thing, to the right protect, and then you can put a label there. Side B is the same thing but with a different Braille engraving, and then side B. Okay? Nice little design there. It looks a lot like the 1982 TDK cassettes, but I do like the Braille and the engraving on that Fuji. It's really nice. I like that. Anyway, now if you look at the J card, it's quite plain. So here you can put, yeah, type 1 normal position, date, time, source, and then this time it's disc, air check, or tape to tape. The CD did not exist at this time, so I'm guessing disc means vinyl. Yeah, air check, I'm pretty sure air check is like, I believe it's either some kind of like audition tape kind of thing, or just like a recorded broadcast of like radio or something. I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, noise reduction on off, and the deck at the back here, yeah, Fuji, you can put like an index number there, ER90, and then of course the tracks and the count. On the inside here, once again I have the stickers, very beautiful. I like those little metallic straps there, and then just a bunch of numbers. Yeah, 1 to 0 and then 1 to 5 again. On the inside, it's the exact same. Except, actually, there's no exception. Yeah, it is the exact same as the back. So in case you mess up in writing the J card, you can actually replace it with the thing on the inside. So that's really nice. So now, I'm gonna put everything back together. And now we have our two Fuji cassettes. One from 1980 and the other from just 2 years later. So now I'm going to go over to my Pioneer TD7 deck, and we're going to test out the two of these cassettes. Okay, so now it's time to test the Fuji cassettes. So the first one we're going to be doing is the Type 1, the Fuji ER. And one change which happened recently was I got myself a digital to audio converter for Christmas. An Audio Quest Dragonfly Black. I don't know if you can see it. Really nice thing, you know. It makes the sound a lot more rich, but I don't think you'll be able to hear it properly through YouTube because, you know, it's compressed and all that. But anyway, yeah, really nice thing. So I'm going to be recording from that from my laptop into the cassette deck. And now I'm going to be calibrating the cassette. Okay, it started. While it's doing this, I should mention that right now I'm trying out a brand new lens, which I also got for Christmas. Yeah, it's a macro lens, 55 to 250 mm. Yeah, so it looks really good, and it has a really quiet focus. And it has image stabilization, so if ever I move it the wrong way, you know, it won't make the image look like jittery or whatnot. Anyway, it's done calibrating. So now I'm gonna roll it with my big pen to where I want it to be in the very beginning of the tape, where we can immediately start recording. And now I'm going to put it back in the deck. Okay. I have already set the recording source to peak at around +2. And the title of this track we'll be using today is called Cover by Patrick Patricios. So now I'm going to be switching between the source and the tape. By now you should be able to see which one it is. I'm going to be putting text on the video. And yeah, so I'm going to plug in my mic now into the output. And let's hear Cover by Patrick Patricios. Well, yeah, it sounded very, very decent. Um, yeah, I should mention that in the middle of recording, when the digital tape counter was at around 270, my camera ran out of memory, and so I just had to redo that tiny little part, just film something that seemed like just refilm that tiny little part. Anyway, the audio is not affected. So yeah, the Fuji ER. I mean, it sounds pretty good. Albeit it's not as good as the source, because of course, you know, it's a cassette. Yeah, those type 1s generally, these kinds of type 1s, these mid-range type 1s don't generally sound super much like the source, especially when they've been used before, you know. So it sounds a little bit muddier, but with my deck, there's actually flex and digital noise reduction, which would make it sound a lot better. But for these demos, I turned them both off. Yeah, you may notice that there is a digital light there. You see that? Yeah, the green light on the deck. It does not mean that digital noise reduction is on, because when you're monitoring a cassette during recording, the digital and flex are automatically turned off. And so, yeah, nothing happens if you turn it on while monitoring the tape during recording. Anyway, now let us do the Type 4 metal cassette, the 1980 Fuji SR. Yes, the one that we've all been waiting for. So right now I'm going to rewind it to side B because, well, yeah, side B is still blank. And then I'm going to record the next track. So yeah, I'll see you then. Alright, so I've made sure that this time my memory card has a lot more space than needed. And yeah, the Fuji SR is already in the cassette deck. So now let's begin the calibration. Yeah, Type 4, man, it's really a great thing. And when recording, I'm going to make this peak at +7. Because I've tried this cassette, and more or less it can take a lot of level. Yeah, so I might make it peak at around +6, +7. Okay, now let's take a look at the cassette. Make sure it's in the right spot. Yep, should be. Okay. So now, let's get on with the music. So the track I'll be using here is another one by Patrick Patricios. It's called Hot Coffee, once again from the YouTube audio library. Yeah, so most of the Type 4s I use peak at more or less +6, +7. So I'm hoping that that this can take the level. Although Type 4 was only invented a year before this was made. And so I'm not 100% sure if it can take that much level. Yeah, so just to be on the safe side, I'm going to be a little bit lower than +7. So yeah, let's just see what happens and let's begin the music. Well, okay. I will say that it could not take the +7, but like, what would you expect, right? It's over 40 years old. Both of these cassettes are over 40 years old. And, well, you can admit though that this cassette, this metal cassette, sounded really, really good, absolutely incredible. And that is completely raw and unprocessed audio. So, yeah, that's about it for the audio test. So, what do I think about these cassettes? Well, I think that they're great. You know, they may not be the very best, of course, because they're so old, and they're not yet they were not yet made during the peak of the cassette in the mid to late 80s and possibly even the early 90s. So, yeah, their formulations weren't as good as, you know, the later cassettes. However, for their age, they're really great, you know, for their age, for their type, for everything. You know, they are great cassettes and they sound wonderful. Especially in a deck like mine, which could even have digital noise reduction and flex, you know. So yeah, that's about it for this video. Thank you very much for coming along with me and checking out these two audio cassettes. One Type 4 from 1980 and the other a Type 1 from 1982. So, yeah, that's it for this video. See, this is really what a good deck can get you, you know. If you have a high-end cassette deck like mine, you can get even these cassettes to sound really great, you know, even these really old cassettes. And I mean, you know, cassettes from the early 80s and the late 70s, they sounded great. You know, like the very early TDK SA from 1979 or the Sony BHF from the same year. I mean, these cassettes sound wonderful, you know? And but the only reason why people don't like cassettes is because they never heard the real sound of cassettes, you know? Because a bunch of people from that time, they only used really low end decks. That's really what causes all of the negative stigma towards cassettes. And anyway, yeah, I'll be making that as a topic of another video, so stay tuned for that. Next week, I'm going to make a video on the Maxell XL1S, like I promised from last time. And then after that, I might make something like another memories on tape video, either that or a demo of several metal cassettes that I have. We'll see, you know. We'll see what happens later on, you know. So yeah, that's about it once again. Thank you so much for watching, and I should mention right now that we are almost at 100 subscribers, which is a really big milestone for me, you know. It's the first big step towards becoming a larger cassette channel. And, you know, I would love to get this format out to the general public and take away all of that negative stigma. But, you know, all of this boils down to you, folks, the viewers. I need you to, you know, like the video, comment for the algorithm, share it to whoever you think would be interested, and, you know, let's get the ball rolling. You know, I'm at 97 subscribers as of the time I'm recording this. And yeah, really, I thank you all so much. Yeah, you can check out a playlist with my other cassette videos up here in the corner. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.